My gang is Hexy. This is video number 2 for tonight. If I start coughing, just forgive me. I got to get over this virus I got. So this is Battle for Stalingrad. Now get this. I am not even through the first complete turn yet. And I want you to look at something. Those of you that have played it are probably going to know. But that mess of stuff right there is the casualties. And I'm not even finished moving the Germans in the first, in the first turn. I still got to move a lot of these guys up here in the northern part. All right. Not quite sure what I'm going to do. Probably try to use, because there's not a whole lot of German forces up here. But I'm probably going to try to cut some of this off if I can. Save some dive bombers over there. Now, and it's funny because I didn't catch this till I saw somebody else's video, but these units, these Russian units, some have a tan color, some are green. These tan colors, these guys they don't have like zones of control. They're not going to stop anything. You can run right around them. So they're not going to inhibit the Germans just sort of blowing through there. Now, I got to assume that, of course, everything you read and watch about Stalingrad, documentary-wise or book-wise, is the casualties were phenomenal. And the Russians just kept throwing everything they could get across that river and get into that city, because they were not going to let go of that city, which, as we know, is part of history, they did not. So I decided to start with my priority, because the 29th Motorized, well, you don't have to pull them out, but you have to pull equivalent units out on turn 3, I believe it is. 29th Motorized gets pulled out and sent somewhere else. So they started down here. And I decided, okay, let's take as much as we can. And as you can see, we've taken a lot of the major victory locations down here, driving towards this ferry up here. We want to get to that ferry so the Russians can't use that. Didn't quite get there. We drew a Soviet reaction chit after one of the combats. We've drawn 2 so far out of the 4 that exist. And the Russians flooded everything they could through these 2 ferries and with this pontoon to double the output for strength points that can come in here. And then this up here. And all the Russians, it only costs them 1 movement point to move through any terrain. Whereas the Germans, they have some terrain, like the big red hex here, costs them 4. Most stuff is 2 and 1. But drove as hard as we could. Got a few units on the back end here now that are going to be cut off from anything because of the line of zones of control here. But you see all these Germans are inactive down here now. They're done for the turn. All that artillery is used up. And the Russians, in their next reaction, when they draw here, are going to get they're going to get some of this, what they call the Trans-Volga artillery, which will sit over here on the other side of the Volga River and just wear the Germans out. But we're pretty much done down there in the south. And how this works is the Germans have they have the initiative. And you move a unit. If you do a combat, at the end of the combat, after you roll on the CRT, you draw a reaction chit. And there's a bunch of reaction chits that are in a cup. And I've got them in a cup. And 4 of these reaction chits, like that red one you see there, are Soviet reaction. What happens is when you draw that, everything stops for the Germans, and then the Soviets get to do some stuff. Now, it's pretty limited to what they can do. Anybody within 2 hexes of Chuikov can move. And then you roll a dice, and whatever the number is on the dice, that's how many other units can move. And then you have reinforcements will come on, which are not part of that. And then your Trans-Volga artillery stuff, if they're part of the phase to come on, they'll come on. Now, the reinforcements for the Russians work during their phases. And you can see on the chart right there, it says first reaction phase, second reaction phase, third reaction phase, and then the final reaction phase is either the last shit gets drawn or the Germans have done everything they have, and then the Soviets get to do all the rest of their movements, okay? So that's how that works. And I don't see the Soviets initially going to be too offensive in this. Yeah, they can attack, because combat in this game doesn't work like pretty much any other game that I know of, because you attack with your strength points. Your defender's strength doesn't really have anything to do with it. The terrain they're in, the terrain you're in, that might modify the columns a little bit. but it's not gonna. Their strength has nothing to do with your attacking strength. So a Soviet unit with 2 strength points, he's going to just attack with his 2 strength points. Depending on whether there's column shifts or not. And then almost all your rolls are step losses. Well, everything in here is pretty much 1 step. So when they get hit, you lose a unit. It goes off the map, and then you have replacements. So I'm imagining that the replacements are how they counteract, because obviously, I'm sure whole units were wiped out, but I'm sure that's how they account for units being weakened, getting replacements put in. And then, of course, you're going to have reinforcements. Now, I haven't got to my first replacement phase yet, so I'm curious to see how that's going to work, because I'm getting the picture of this game already where the Russians are just going to get a flood of replacements constantly, and the Germans just aren't. And eventually their ability to be aggressive is going to slow down. So I guess you got to push kind of hard as fast as you can and eliminate a lot of this stuff. So Battle for Stalingrad, this one's from Excalibre Games. This one, like I say, I believe it's published by SPI first. That seems to be most of the comments I'm getting. But like I say, we're not even through turn 1. We had 80 points of level bombers for the Germans that went off the bat. We used about 20 points of dive bombers, maybe initially at the start, to do some more attacking. And that's most of those casualties are caused by that. And then the Germans just went hog wild from the south down there driving into Stalingrad. They've taken a pretty good chunk of it right there. And I guess I'm going to learn as I go, should I have done more down there? Because when you do combats, the differential in losses is how the breakout points are created for the attacker. So if the attacker causes 4 losses and the defender causes 1 loss, well, that's the differential of 3. The attacker is going to get 3 breakout points, which he can move, and then he can use 1 point for each hex he moves, or 1 point to attack again. So if he keeps attacking and he keeps getting breakout points, he keeps moving until he just can't do it no more, or you stop him, and then you flip him over to his other color side. Now, the sides of both units are the same strength. One, the numbers are in black. One, the other side, the numbers are in white. So when the turn's over, most of these counters are going to be flipped over to their white side. Well, when it's over, you just flip the remaining ones over to their white side, which most of them should probably be there anyhow. And then you start the next turn with them on their white side, and then you'll flip them back towards their black side. That way you're not having to go back through and flip every counter over again to start a new turn. I thought that was pretty ingenious. Somebody thought that one. So there you go, Battle for Stalingrad, Excalibre Games. You see what's going on here. I'll get you an update after I move the rest of the Germans. We'll post a video on that, and that'll be the attacks up here in this area right here. All right, it's Hexy. We'll see y'all soon.